Hey, welcome back to another episode of the podcast for exceptional people. I'm Will McClain. Joining our conversation today is Amy Pleet-Odle, founder of Joyful Inclusion. So, Amy, what are we talking about today?
Well, let's talk about inclusion and make it joyful.
I love it. I love joy. I love inclusion. I love the world, and I love the enthusiasm that I can feel from you and talking to you. I'm just getting ready for this episode here. So, let's get right into it.
Okay.
All right. So, what was the original spark? What was the original thing that brought you into what specifically now you study through your work at Joyful Inclusion?
Well, to answer that, I think I have to go back 55 years to when I was a beginning English teacher. And there was this kid in my class named Dale. That's not his real name, and by the way. But Dale was a seventh grader, hair stood up one side, big grin, but he could barely write his name in the seventh grade. And reading was a struggle. Like he had to go to the restroom anytime it was time to read. And I was new. What did I know? I was like 22, just out of getting my bachelor's degree. And I went to my department chairman and said, "What do I do?" And here's what he said: "There's some kids that just won't learn. Don't worry about it. Teach the rest." 1970. Okay. That was the philosophy. And I said, "No, I'm not giving up on Dale. I love this kid." And I started figuring out things I could do. 5 years later, the first special ed law passed. And I went, okay, this is my thing. I gotta learn more about this. Went and got, the first of a whole series of degrees in what do I need to know to learn? What can I do so I can really address the needs of the Dales of the world? And they're in every class.
Yeah,
That's what started me.
knowing that you've seen Dale's for the next 55 years, right?
Right. Right.
I'm curious, what was that first licensure program like? Like, what was that very first thing that you jumped into? I'm just curious as a student.
Well, I already had a master's degree to be an English teacher. I wanted to be really good. So I got a certificate that was 15 credit hours on reading and learning disabilities. And then that got me started. I went on to have, do several more things. I became a transition coordinator. So I placed kids like Dale out on the job. And guess what I learned? I said, "Now, when we're going into this job interview, he's going to ask you, is there any reason you can't perform this job? What are you going to say?" And he said, "Should I tell them that I'm really stupid and I can't read?" And I went, "No, no, no, no. You're not, what? And I said, "Just explain you have a learning disability." And he said, "What's that?" 17 years old. Nobody had talked to him about what a learning disability is. And I thought, all those years that I was a teacher, as a special ed teacher, and I provided accommodations, I adjusted my teaching. I never talked to the kids about them and what they needed and how they could be the owner. They could actually ask for the accommodations they need because if they go on to college or they go into a work site, they're going to. So that was another big aha, like, oh my gosh. So I went back and started talking to teachers. I went, I need to get this word out to teachers. So then I got my doctorate in special ed systems change. And I went, okay, what can I do to change things? And at that point, I was the state transition specialist for the state of Maryland. I'd been in that job for 3 months when IDEA was reauthorized and now transition was required for everybody. And
That's right.
every special ed director in the state called me and said, "What are we supposed to do now?" And I went, "Oh, the regulations aren't out. I don't know. I've only been in this job 3 months." But I got to be part of an OSEP think tank. They pulled the state transition specialists in with all the researchers. Here I am, a doctoral student, still working as the and I got to be part of that think tank of what transition should be and how do we create systems change. And so all the things that I knew as a teacher and as a transition coordinator, I could embed in that. And then when I graduated, I went to a university and they hired me to create a master's program in special ed. because they'd only had a few courses. They wanted a whole degree. So I thought, okay, every course is going to have something about student ownership and self determination. Every course is going to have something about, like, all of these pieces and building it all. It needs to be all together. So when these teachers are graduated, they're ready.
That's a pretty incredible education to get in special education, and in inclusion is doing those jobs and being at the front of those jobs. That's a really, really, really special way to learn. That's cool.
And then I got to be the parent at an IEP meeting. My son had an IEP, and it was a school that I had served, and I was on first name basis. And when I walked in, instead of just taking my seat at the IEP meeting, they said, "Oh, the parent sits here." I thought, I've never had nobody assigned my seat before. This is where we have our parent seat, and this is the part of the meeting where parents are allowed to talk. And then this is like, tell us what your concerns are. And I go, well, I might have some other concerns during the meeting. And they went, and somebody on that team filed a report that I was not a team player because I wasn't playing like a member of the team. I was acting like one of those problem parents. And I thought, wait a minute, aren't we all working together? So then I got this passion about family engagement and started going to, what do I need to learn about family engagement? And I worked some with the folks at Harvard that were designing the dual capacity building program for the framework for building dual capacity partnerships with families. So I added that into, okay, that's going to be in all my courses.
I love
And
it.
then, and then I placed my student interns, my graduate interns out on the job because I had to observe that they could use all these strategies when they're teaching.
Mhm.
And they're standing in the back of the class. And I go, wait, you were one of my store students. Why are you standing in the back of the class? And they said, well, he's the teacher of the year. I shouldn't interrupt him. But it's not about interrupting. It's about collaboration. And it's about both of you bringing your expertise and his expertise to really teach in this class. I thought, okay, we got to change the system. If that's how special ed teachers are treated, that they're like, I can pull my kids out or I can stand in the back until the teacher's done teaching. No, 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 no. We need to do something different. And then I have
So,
one more turning point, and I'm going to tell you, and then I'll go back to your questions. So I started consulting with school districts on how to improve. And one day a principal and I were walking down the hall and he said to me, you know that classroom we just left? And I said, yeah. He goes, I don't know what that special ed teacher should have been doing. So I don't know how to supervise them, but I'm pretty sure what we just saw is not what should be happening. I don't have the background as a principal to do what I need to do. So the bottom line is there's so many stakeholders to make special ed work. What do the kids need? What do the teachers need? What do the principals need? What do the families need? What does the special ed director at the top need? And so Joyful Inclusion was founded to address the needs of everybody. I need to build a system, use what I've learned about systems change so that you can't just do a professional development for one teacher or a group of teachers and expect the whole thing to be fixed.
that's right.
So,
It's a system. I mean, it is. So, so after 55 years and a million lessons learned and forgotten and cycles that you've seen come and go,
and
um,
rediscovered. Yeah.
and rediscovered and become refreshed. So, what is something that you have learned new along your journey? What's something that has been confirmed for you, and what's something kind of surprising along your 55-year journey?
Wow. I've told a lot of the surprising ones. Hmm. I think I'm stumped on something else. I should have saved one of my stories for this question.
Well, I'll tell you, one thing that stood out to me that you said was about the 17-year-old student who, when you said, "Look, just, own yourself, own your identity." And he said, "Well, what is that?" what an important piece of your self identity and of your self awareness to have, and to be at 17 years old and to not have that understanding that this is perfectly acceptable because this is perfectly who I am.
I want to add something to that. I was part of a research study where they analyzed what the process was for teenagers learning about their disability when they were in high school. And the first response that kids had was, I do not have a disability. I'm not one of those or words or, like pushback, no denial. That was the first session. And it was a series of 4 sessions. By the fourth session, they said, how come nobody ever told me? Do you know what I made up instead? And the stories they made up about themselves and about the lack of possibilities for their future and the self-beliefs, it took them a journey. It wasn't a one-time conversation. It took them some time, but then they were like, I can now move on with my life because I'm not a broken person. I'm just a person that has some things that are a little different, like all of us. Who of us has everything intact and every part of us work perfectly? We all have areas.
Yeah, everybody has something. Everybody
Yeah.
has something. So I can't imagine that there would be many skeptics for inclusive practices or for what you brought when you founded Joyful Inclusion. But if you were met with a panel of skeptics, what's going to be the first argument you make? What's the first point that you make to them to bring them on your team?
Oh, yeah. So the US Department of Labor tracks employment rates for adults with disabilities in this country. The first year they tracked it was 2008. And at that point, adults without disabilities were employed at the high 60s or 70s range. 70%, let's say, of adults without disabilities were employed. 20% of adults with disabilities were employed. 20, 1 in 5. Okay. They're not 100% of them can be employed, by the way, but same with people without disabilities. So that was in 2008. Today, it's 21%. We have had special ed laws since 1975. We've had transition services since 1997, and it's gone up 1%. It's still pretty close to 1 in 5. You think about the kids in your building that have IEPs or 504 plans, 1 in 5 of them will be employed. And that's not full time employment, that's full time, part time, seasonal. And have they been employed at all this year? 1 in 5? We have to do something different. And I think it's about all of those stakeholders. It's about changing the kids' image of themselves and what they think is possible, and the images that other people have, what the expectations are of that's huge. What a teacher thinks that kid can achieve. There's lots of studies about that. So
So
that's what I would say.
you would sway me, and certainly, but so does that strengthen your resolve then? Does that strengthen the resolve of the people who are doing your work to see that 1% and to say that doesn't represent the work that we're doing?
Well, it's why after 55 years, I'm still going strong. Yeah.
That's it. It's perfect. And like I said, your enthusiasm is definitely palpable, and I love it. So people are going to be engaging with you in Baltimore when we get to the Council for Exceptional Children conference there. What are you bringing to Baltimore, and what do you hope folks who engage with you walk away with?
Great question. Thank you, Will. Thank you for this whole opportunity. So, we're running a booth this year. That's the first time. I have 12 people on my team who are amazing special educators or family members of people with disabilities who really want to work for this and who come together with me. And so at the booth, we are launching brand new what we're calling the Joyful Inclusion Community. We think this is a time when people need to have a community together that we can support each other. There'll be discussion boards, there'll be webinars. We're going to have a power hour once a month where we have a topic and we say, let's bring all of our power to solve this dilemma. And we've curated a library of the best resources we can find on various 6 topics, actually. So that's going to be available at the booth, and that we're opening the membership Monday of the week of CEC. And people who come to the booth will get a discount code to join. And we're also doing a showcase where we're going to talk about all of the packages that I have. I have a multi-year sequence of professional development that supports all of the different stakeholders to build joyful inclusion across their building. But what I really want people to walk away with in any conversation, whether it's at the booth or over some socializing hour or at our showcase, is let's rethink disability and what's possible for kids. And let's not think of kids as having some aspect of them that's broken that has to be fixed. But instead, let's think about we're all variable as humans, and every child in every school and every teacher and every staff person from time to time has special needs. And sometimes those needs last longer. Like somebody loses a family member, they have a special need. We don't have to put a label on them and say, do they qualify for support? We give them the help they need. So I want to open up that feeling of let's just give kids what they need without the labels that might stigmatize and limit what's possible. So
That was a really powerful example. Yeah, I like that. I
thank
like
you.
that, and I can't wait to meet you in, Baltimore. I can't believe that we'll be there a week from yesterday, is when we arrived. So, Amy, thank you so much, for coming on and for representing this beautiful thing that you have founded, Joyful Inclusion, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Baltimore.
I look forward to meeting you too, Will. Thank you.
All right, take care.